Go ahead, DeMaris.
Hi, my name is DeMaris, and I'm with the Religion of Jesus Church. We run the Wormhole, which is a spiritual outreach patient center, and we help anyone and everyone over the age of 21 get their marijuana. Notice I didn't say medical marijuana, I said marijuana, because you are hardwired for this, just like your car is hardwired for oil. You have receptors in every part of your body. This is a medical fact that they don't tell you about. You have been evolving with the cannabis plant for over 7,000 years, denying any and every one of you. The cannabis plant is denying you your basic creation. Everybody has a God that they turn to. If you turn to your scriptures, whatever they are, whether they're Tibetan, whether they're Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, Muslim, you all have, in the beginning, is the green seed-bearing plant. They didn't say red, they didn't say purple, they said green. And therefore, the Creator who created you is hitting you over the head that all of them are this. So the next time somebody says, you can't have it, it's against the law, say, oh, I'm sorry, it's my holy sacrament, it keeps me sane, and God gave it to me. It doesn't make any difference what you call God. It's your God, your Creator, your beliefs, and you are entitled to that under the Constitution. First Amendment rights, first sentence. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion or the free practice thereof. If you believe it in your heart, it is your religion. Go ahead.
I guess I'm next. Hi, I'm Doug McVay. Common Sense for Drug Policy. I edit something called Drug War Facts. Very data-driven, very, very specific, very focused on proper citations and the rest. I'm a data nerd, and so obviously I'm the correct choice for a panel on cannabis and spirituality. But it is, because I wouldn't care enough about these issues if it didn't have a deeper meaning than that. I like numbers and I like statistics and I like data, but there's a reason. It's because I come at this from a social justice perspective. I've always believed in basic things like freedom and equality, and it's because of the values that I have from, well, my personal values. It's a spiritual thing. I don't talk about it a lot because it's personal. If I were to define it, I'm a Zen Methodist. It works. I backslide, but I meditate, so it makes up for it. And I sing in choir once in a while, which also makes up for it. And I use cannabis occasionally. It helps me meditate, helps me to calm down. And it's simply something that is useful for me in that way. It also helps me to be in touch with myself and my feelings and my passions and my concerns and my fears. It helps. And that makes it possible for me to do the work that I do. And the work that I do, one way or another, drug policy reform, is because I believe it advances the cause of social justice, which I think is a good thing. I have to be able to do what I believe in. Otherwise, I just don't think, it's hard for me to live with myself. Whether it's by doing some kind of charitable work and then volunteering, or whether it's doing work full-time that I can interpret as advancing a positive goal, it's what I must do. I'm fortunate that I can do this and make a living at it. Very fortunate, because it lets me move forward on my own spiritual path. There are a lot of folks who do harm reduction, who are involved in day-to-day practitioner work, handing out needles to people, doing medical marijuana dispensary work, that's growing or giving to patients. All different kinds of levels, that direct kind of personal action. It's fantastic. Others of us do this work by thinking about it, by writing, by looking up stuff, by doing panels like this and talking about ideas with people like you. Ideas are beautiful, aren't they? They're like pollen, you know, because once it's in the air, you never know who's going to sneeze. You throw these ideas out there, and you hope that somewhere it's going to stick. And you won't sneeze it out. Well, that was a weird analogy. Okay, when the analogies start getting too weird, it's time for me to shuffle on along. But again, you know, it's an open mind. And whether you're personal philosophy revolves around the plant, or whether your personal philosophy is just either too mundane or too eclectic to fully enunciate. There are all kinds of ways in which this plant can be useful on a personal and other kinds of levels. And so, you know, just have an open mind. And thank you all for your time and your patience. Cheers.
Okay, good afternoon. No, sorry, good morning. It's so bright out there, it feels like afternoon, but it's still morning. My name is Sunil Aggarwal. I am living here in Seattle for the last six years now. Before that I lived in the Bay Area, in Berkeley, and before that I lived in Oklahoma. That's where I was born. And before that, my parents, they came from India. That's where they were born. That's where they grew up. And all their succeeding generations, all from India. I want to talk to you a little bit about why the Indian tradition that I've been raised in has some relevance to the issues that we're talking about at the Hempfest. The first name of cannabis, when it was brought to the United States, that people knew it as, was Indian hemp. Not just any old hemp, because North America had any old hemp for a long period of time, since the 1600s, when French and English and Spanish colonizers came to North America and South America. They brought fiber strains of hemp. But there was never any, they didn't have the genetics to produce drug strains of hemp, that is, cannabis flowers that actually produce a significant amount of tetrahydrocannabinol and other cannabinoids. Those genetics came to the United States only in the late 19th century and into the early 20th century. I have no record of it before that. It started with, well, really 5 entry points. One was World's Fairs, like the Philadelphia International Exposition, which had a Turkish hashish emporium in 1875, where you could go and actually have a little hashish before you went to the other feats of amazing electricity and other kinds of things that were to shock and awe the gentry of Philadelphia. And that was one entry point. There was an explosion of hashish parlors and things like that. And it was basically an oriental, it was presented as this orientalist feat of wonder. You know, come experience the exotic Orient, take the hashish. You could also even buy it in the New York Times, and they had advertisements for ganja sellers and things like that. It was all coming from India. Another entry point was New Orleans in 1913. Caribbean and South American sailors actually brought this strain of cannabis with them, and they brought it up the river, the Mississippi River system, and in refrigerated barges, and that's how we got the word reefer. Another entry point was the East Indians. The East Indian immigrants first came, 500,000 of them came to the Caribbean in the 1840s, 1850s, after the British Empire outlawed slavery. They needed to have they had labor needs for the sugar plantations, so they brought their other colonial subjects from India to do indentured labor. And that's Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, Suriname, a couple of those places in South America, Caribbean. And that was the first major infusion of lots of drug strains of cannabis, because this people in India had been using this plant for 3,000, well, documented 3,000 years. If you go back to some of their early religious texts, like the Vedas. So it was normal for them to actually cultivate this germplasm, this plant. And so they brought it with them, and from there it spread to different points. And finally into the hands of that's how the Mexican Americans, well, they were Mexicans and then they crossed the border and became Mexican Americans, when 1 million of them crossed the border in the first few decades of the 20th century after the Civil War down there. So that's where we got the word marijuana, was the association with the Mexican Americans. which is, of course, this Portuguese, Mexican, Spanish, Portuguese slang word, which means to, probably from the word marihuango, which means